On April 6, 2020, Quibi launched into the biggest captive audience in the history of screens. The entire country was locked inside. Netflix, Disney+, YouTube, TikTok, every one of them posted record engagement that exact spring. And Quibi, a brand new app built by Hollywood royalty with $1.75 billion behind it, launched straight into that moment and effectively vanished in 6 months. The official explanation came from the top. Jeffrey Katzenberg told the New York Times that almost everything that had gone wrong he attributed to coronavirus. It's a clean story. It's also wrong, because the audience was right there, more of it than ever. The problem was that nothing Quibi made could ever leave the app. Not financial advice, just a look at what actually happened, on the record. To understand the money, start with the man. Jeffrey Katzenberg ran Walt Disney's film studio through the run of hits that revived it, then co-founded DreamWorks, and spent 2 decades as one of the most bankable names in Hollywood. When he sold DreamWorks Animation to NBC Universal in 2016, he started pitching a second act. He called it NewTV. The idea, Hollywood-grade shows, movie budgets, movie stars, but cut into chapters of 10 minutes or less, made for the one screen people never put down, the phone. He wasn't betting that people would watch video on their phones. Everyone already knew they would. He was betting they'd pay a premium for a nicer version of it. To run it, Katzenberg recruited Meg Whitman. Whitman had been the CEO of eBay through its rise, then CEO of Hewlett-Packard, one of the most credentialed executives in American business. In 2018, the company got its real name, Quibi, short for Quick Bites. And that pairing, a legendary studio boss and a legendary tech CEO, was the entire pitch. The resumes were the product. Investors weren't buying a tested app with real users, because there wasn't one yet. They were buying Katzenberg and Whitman, and the belief that people with records like that don't miss. And the money came in like they couldn't miss. Quibi raised roughly $1.75 billion before it had a single paying subscriber. The backers read like a wall of logos. The major Hollywood studios: Disney, NBC Universal, Sony, Warner, Viacom, plus tech money, banks, and Alibaba. This is the part worth sitting with. Nearly $2 billion committed to a product that no ordinary person had ever used, on the strength of 2 careers and a slide deck. Money raised on resumes, not on results. Here's what that money bought. Quibi would be mobile only, no web player, no living room app, phone screen only. Every show came in chapters of 10 minutes or less, so you could watch, in Quibi's own words, in the in-between moments of your day. The line, the train, the elevator. It would cost $4.99 a month with ads, or $7.99 without. Premium prices, premium content, delivered to the small screen. On paper, it was coherent. Every one of those decisions, though, was about to collide with how video actually spreads. The centerpiece, the thing Quibi demoed on every stage, was called Turnstyle. It was a genuine piece of engineering. Shoot every scene in both landscape and portrait, and let the viewer rotate the phone mid-video to switch between them, seamlessly, no interruption. Quibi patented it. Engineers were proud of it, and it tells you exactly where the company's attention went. The single most hyped feature at launch was about how the video looked when you turned your phone, not about how a single second of that video would ever reach anyone who hadn't already paid. That same technology later became the subject of a patent dispute with a startup called Echo, a lawsuit that was eventually settled. Because that was the real design decision, the one nobody put on a keynote slide. At launch, you could not screenshot a Quibi show, the screen went black. You could not cast it to your television, and there was no way to clip a moment and post it, no share button that sent a 30-second scene to Twitter or a group chat or TikTok. Think about how you find out a show exists in 2020. Someone posts a clip. A scene goes viral with no context. A screenshot becomes a meme. That is the entire modern engine of discovery content, escaping its app and advertising itself for free. Quibi welded the doors shut. Nothing could leave, so nothing could pull anyone in. And they locked the schedule before they knew any of this would work. Quibi pre-sold roughly $150 million of advertising for its first year. 2 blue-chip brands reported names included Procter & Gamble, PepsiCo, Progressive, and Walmart. That sounds like strength. It was actually a trap of their own making. Those ad commitments were tied to a launch date, which meant the date was fixed, in ink, long before a single real user had ever tried the app. There would be no quiet beta, no soft launch, no chance to notice the doors were welded shut. Then there was the content itself, commissioned at full Hollywood rates, widely reported at around $100,000 per minute of finished video. Big directors, A-list actors, real production budgets. But here's the structural catch that separates Quibi from Netflix. Under the deals Quibi signed, the rights to many of these shows would return to the creators after a period of years. So Quibi was paying Netflix prices to rent content it would eventually hand back. Netflix spends billions and owns a library that keeps working for a decade. Quibi spent a fortune and, by design, would be left holding almost nothing. By early 2020, the confidence was total. Quibi bought a spot in the Super Bowl, the most expensive advertising real estate on earth, before it had shipped a single episode. It lined up a slate stacked with names: Steven Spielberg, Guillermo del Toro, Sophie Turner, Chrissy Teigen, Idris Elba, Liam Hemsworth, and dozens more. The marketing was everywhere. The talent was undeniable. And underneath all of it sat a single quiet assumption, the assumption that would actually decide everything. The assumption was this: that great content plus famous names is a distribution strategy. That if you spend enough and hire enough stars, people will simply find their way to you. For most of the 20th century, that was true. Whoever had the biggest stars and the biggest budget won. But that world had a gatekeeper: the network, the theater, the cable bundle deciding what you saw. That world was already gone. Quibi launched on April 6, 2020. Look at the timing again, because it is the exact opposite of the excuse. This was the peak of lockdown. People were home, bored, and staring at screens more than at any point in human history. Netflix would add roughly 26 million subscribers in the first half of that year. Disney Plus blew past its multi-year targets in months. If there was ever a moment when a new streaming service should have caught fire, a captive planet with nothing to do was it. Quibi had the audience handed to it. And here's the fact that dismantles the coronavirus story completely. Short-form mobile video did not fail in the spring of 2020. It exploded. TikTok short clips, shot on a phone, watched on a phone, had one of the biggest growth surges any app has ever recorded in exactly those months. Same format, same screen, same locked-down audience. TikTok was the control experiment sitting right next to Quibi, and it proved that people desperately wanted short video on their phones. What they didn't want was a version they couldn't share, couldn't clip, and had to pay for. So the audience showed up to look and then didn't stay. Quibi reported strong download numbers in its first week, but reportedly only a small fraction of those free trials ever converted into paying subscribers. And the moment the reviews landed, so did the retrofits. Weeks after launch, Quibi rushed out the ability to cast a show to your TV. It quietly re-enabled screenshots. The features everyone had assumed were coming were now being bolted onto a moving car, in public, as an emergency. But you cannot patch your way out of a launch. The free trial clock was already running, and for most people it ran out and simply expired. With the numbers underwater, the structure started to buckle from every side. Some of those pre-sold advertisers asked to defer their commitments. The guaranteed money that had locked the launch date now wanted to push its payments down the road. Katzenberg and Whitman went looking for a lifeline. A sale, new funding, anything. Reporting at the time said they approached potential buyers and explored going public through a shell company. There were no takers. The people who wrote the checks up front, on the resumes, were not writing another one on the results. So they made the honest call, fast. In October of 2020, barely 6 months after that Super Bowl launch, Katzenberg and Whitman announced they were shutting Quibi down, and by December, the app went dark. They returned roughly $350 million of what was left to investors, nearly $1.75 billion raised. And the most notable act of the whole company was giving a fraction of it back. That is where the coronavirus story wants to end. It shouldn't. Because there's an epilogue that gives the whole thing away. In early 2021, Roku bought the rights to Quibi's entire content library, reportedly for well under $100 million, a fraction of what it cost to make and put the shows on its free, ad-supported channel. And some of them found the audience Quibi never could: free to watch, easy to share, playable on the biggest screen in the house. One Quibi series had already won Emmys during the app's short life. The shows, it turned out, were fine. Some were genuinely good. The container was the problem. So here is the actual lesson, and it has nothing to do with a virus. Quibi launched into the single best window streaming has ever seen, with more money, more talent, and more attention than almost any startup in history, and it still failed because it got one thing exactly backwards. It believed that in the streaming age, content is the product, and distribution takes care of itself. The opposite is true. In a world without gatekeepers, distribution is the product. The clip that escapes onto TikTok, the screenshot that becomes a meme, the scene a friend casts to the living room TV that is not marketing that happens after the show. That is the show finding its audience. Quibi built a beautiful, expensive, sealed box, and then was genuinely surprised that nothing inside it could get out. Jeffrey Katzenberg said the timing was attributable to coronavirus, but the timing was perfect. The box was the mistake. Every episode of this channel goes looking for that mistake, not the disruption everyone already blames, but the decision inside the building that made it fatal. If you want to see which company we take apart next, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you at the next case file.